I'm here not to tweak Darwinian theory, but to expose what I believe is its terminal fracture.
We call it the Pluripotent Paradox, and at its core stands one of the most powerful tools in modern biomedicine, the pluripotent stem cell. Pluripotent stem cells, PSCs, are the ultimate cellular blank slate. They self-renew indefinitely and can differentiate into every cell type derived from the 3 germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Embryonic stem cells, ESCs, come straight from the blastocyst. But the real revolution arrived in 2006 when Shinya Yamanaka showed that ordinary adult somatic cells, skin fibroblasts for example, could be reverse-engineered into induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. 4 transcription factors, OCT4, SOX2, KLF4, and c-MYC, the famous Yamanaka factors, are introduced, and the cell is stripped of its specialized identity. Epigenetic marks are erased, differentiation programs are silenced, the genome is reset to an embryonic-like state. The cell forgets what it was and becomes capable of becoming anything. That process is not incremental tweaking. It is deliberate, information-rich reversal. You are actively removing layers of regulatory information that locked the cell into a specialized fate. You are restoring a pluripotent template that nature, according to evolutionary orthodoxy, was never supposed to need in the first place. The evolutionary narrative. Now contrast that with the foundational Darwinian story. Evolution, we are told, is a blind, forward-only march. Random mutations plus natural selection. Simple prokaryotic cells gradually acquire complexity. Specialized cells arise because specialization confers a survival advantage in a specific niche. A liver cell is optimized for detoxification, a neuron for signaling. There is no selective pressure whatsoever for a blank cell that can do everything but is committed to nothing. In a competitive environment, such a cell would be energetically wasteful and immediately outcompeted. The arrow of evolution is supposed to point inexorably toward greater specialization, not toward a reversible, de-differentiated state. Yet every multicellular organism on Earth begins development with precisely such blank slate cells. The embryo requires pluripotency before it can build anything. So here is the paradox. If evolution builds only forward, how did the first pluripotent template ever appear? And once it existed, why would natural selection preserve the machinery to reverse specialization when the entire narrative insists specialization is the irreversible winning strategy? Look at the actual mechanics of iPSC generation. It is not mutation and selection at work. It is precise, targeted erasure of epigenetic information. DNA methylation patterns, histone modifications, chromatin architecture, followed by activation of the pluripotency network. The somatic cell does not evolve its way back. It is forcibly reset by an external intelligent agent, the researcher, who knows exactly which 4 master regulators to deploy. Remove any one of those factors, and the process collapses. Add them in the wrong order or dosage, and you get partial reprogramming, cancer-like states, or cell death. This is not bottom-up emergence. This is top-down reset. And it works because the information for pluripotency was already latent in the genome all along. A preloaded template waiting to be uncovered, not a novelty invented by random copying errors. Evolution has no mechanism to invent such a reversible, foresight-laden system in the first place. A cell that can be blanked and then respecified requires coordinated, interdependent gene regulatory networks that must exist before specialization even begins. That is the opposite of gradualism. Here is the devastating implication. The very existence of iPSCs demonstrates that cellular identity is not the product of irreversible, forward-only mutational accretion. It is modular, reversible, and information-rich in a way that demands an original design architecture. Evolution's core claim, that complexity arises solely through blind, incremental, environment-driven change, collapses when confronted with a process that requires removing information to restore versatility. Nature does not reverse engineer its own cells without the full developmental program already in place. Scientists do, because we possess intelligence and knowledge of the underlying code. If evolution cannot explain the first pluripotent cell, it cannot explain the origin of any multicellular developmental program. And if it cannot explain the reversibility of differentiation, it cannot explain why every animal embryo still deploys that exact mechanism today. The arrow is pointing the wrong way. This is not isolated speculation. Synthetic chemist James Tour has repeatedly demonstrated, through rigorous chemical analysis, that even the simplest molecular machines inside cells cannot assemble themselves by undirected processes. His work on the origin of life problem, and, more recently, his collaborations examining long-term evolution experiments, shows that random mutation and selection produce only constrained tinkering, never genuine innovation or new functional information. In his dialogues with Rob Stadler, they review decades of E. coli, yeast, and fruit fly experiments. Adaptation, yes, but no new patents, no new body plans, no new information architectures, just reshuffling of pre-existing parts. Tour's challenge is simple and devastating. Show me the chemistry. Show me the mechanism. The same applies here. Show me how blind chemistry produced a genome that encodes a reversible pluripotent state before any multicellular organism existed to use it. Other researchers, Douglas Axe, Anne Gager, and the entire intelligent design research community, have quantified the rarity of functional protein folds and the insurmountable probabilistic barriers to coordinated mutational pathways. When you layer the pluripotent paradox on top of that, the case becomes airtight. Ladies and gentlemen, the pluripotent stem cell is not a footnote in regenerative medicine. It is the smoking gun. It proves that cellular life was engineered with modular, reversible information systems from the very beginning. Systems that blind evolution could never have assembled, because they require foresight, not hindsight. The theory of evolution, as classically formulated, is not merely incomplete. At the level of the cell, it is directionally wrong. The arrow does not point forward from chaos to specialisation. It points from a designed template outward to specialised function and back again when needed. This is the final flaw. Not a gap to be filled with more storytelling, but a fundamental inversion of the entire narrative.